Welcome everyone to Drupal Working with Design Blocks. Today what we're going to cover includes accessibility. So this is going to be a nice little overview, and it's going to include all the basic needs for you to start working with the new content types in Drupal. After accessibility, we're going to dive into the new theme and how to use all the different design blocks, how to use the content types. So that's going to be fun. And last but not least, we're going to focus on the content that you may want to put on the new theme. So this means that we'll cover strategies for that content creation and then how to implement your navigation. All right, so our first section is going to be covered by Leon McNaught and Jimmy Tai. And without further ado, I will stop sharing and pass the torch to them.
Thanks very much, Anush. My name's Leon McNaught, for those of you that have never met me yet. I'm the Accessible Technology Initiative Project Manager, and I'm going to cover some of our accessibility today. Can everybody see my screen okay? All right, let's get started. So why is it important that we consider accessibility as we create our CalStateLA web pages? Well, as a state institution, we do have to abide by federal and state law for accessibility. Those big ones are the Americans with Disabilities Act from 1990, and we have Section 504 and 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of the 70s. So it's very important that we keep this in mind as we put content on the web. And you know, the web is a very dynamic place. We have lots of content editors up there, and you really have to be purposeful and mindful when you're adding content that you're using the accessibility best practices so that everybody can you know, benefit from the information on the web. So what is accessible content? Well, in web pages, we can think about you know, the stuff that we put on there, the content, the copy, images, videos, audio, and also apps as well. So we have to keep accessibility in mind when we put information on the web. And if we follow the best practices, basically what that's going to ensure is that regardless of who's accessing our web page or information, we don't require them to access it with any specific abilities such as vision or hearing, or to come to that information from any specific user agents or browsers or devices. We have lots of people accessing our content from many different platforms and browsers and smartphones and tablets and desktop computers. And those individuals are accessing, they may have different abilities, and they could be using assistive technology to help them consume that information. So we have a few little quick video vignettes here just to sort of illustrate to you the importance of some of these areas for accessibility. I'm actually going to stop sharing and reshare to make sure that I have included the computer sound here. This video is on video captions. So let me go ahead and play this for you.
Web accessibility perspectives. Video captions. Video isn't just about pictures, it's also about sound. Without the audio, you'd have to guess what this film is about. Frustrating, isn't it? Not knowing what's going on. That's the situation for everyone who can't hear. Captions make videos accessible, which is also handy for people who want to watch video in loud environments or where you need to be very, very quiet. Web accessibility, essential for some, useful for all.
So that is just a quick little vignette on video captions, and we do require captions for all video content that go on our websites. You know, it's very important, obviously, for someone who's hearing impaired, but what we find is that many different individuals enjoy captions if they're English as a second language students, or they have some sort of um, need to see and hear the information at the same time. We have people who prefer that multiple modalities to consume their information. Next one is keyboard operability, and when we think about that, we're thinking about when somebody moves through your website and they're not using a mouse, they may not have vision. So they're accessing all of your information via the keyboard, they're tabbing through, they're pulling up links, and they're consuming the information that way. It's very important that we consider keyboard accessibility for everyone to have equal access.
Web accessibility perspectives. Keyboard compatibility. Not being able to use your computer because your mouse doesn't work is frustrating. Many people use only the keyboard to navigate websites, either through preference or circumstance. Whether it's temporarily limited mobility, a permanent physical disability, or simply a broken mouse, the result is the same. Websites and apps need to be operable by keyboard. Web accessibility. Essential for some, useful for all. Visit.
Next is color contrast, and that's something that is quite easy to overlook. Later in our accessibility portion, Jimmy will mention some tools to you that can help you check your color contrast. Specifically, we're talking about the contrast between fonts and the background color. Here's a little video on color contrast.
Web accessibility perspectives. Colors with good contrast. There's something about great design that allows it to go practically unnoticed. But it doesn't take much to make things confusing and frustrating. Choosing colors with poor contrast makes navigating, reading, and interacting a real pain. Good design means sufficient contrast between foreground and background colors. That's not just text and images, but links, icons, and buttons. If it's important enough to be seen, then it needs to be clear. And this is essential for people with low contrast sensitivity, which becomes more common as we age. With good colors, websites and applications can be easier to use in more situations, like in different lighting conditions. Web accessibility, essential for some, useful for all.
So we do have some control over our color selection and palettes when we put information on the web. So here's a quick checklist to keep in mind when you are updating content on your web page for accessibility. The page structure, when you're adding information via Drupal, we want to make sure that you use the heading style properly. So the first heading level that's available to you as a content editor is heading level 2, which would be something that you'd use for a title for the information on the page. And then if you're going to use headings under that, they should be used properly, such as heading level 3s would be under a level 2. And that'll make sure that the information is properly nested and logical to individuals who are using assistive technology to access your information. It's pretty common for users who are using AT, assistive technology, to extract information from a web page just by headings alone. So they might just pull up a list of headings so they can organize the information on the page. Also, when you're using tables, you really want to use tables for data versus layout. There are some times that you can use tables for layout, but really we prefer that you use it just for summarizing data, and then that you use columns or perhaps some of the other new Drupal design block features if you want to change the layout on the page. Also, when you're creating lists of information, make sure you use the tool in the Drupal editor toolbar, either a bulleted list or a numbered list. The reason for that is when you're moving through this information, providing all this structure such as headings and lists gives the screen reader the importance of the information so that it's announced to the user. If you use a proper list, the screen reader would say a list with 5 items and you're currently on item number 1, and then it would describe what it is. But if you create lists where you might just put like asterisks in front of them or something, so visually it's a list, it's not programmatically a list for assistive technology. Also, when we talk about links, links is pretty important. Again, links is one of those ways that individuals using assistive technology may navigate the content on the page. As you can imagine, it's pretty laborious to tab through a web page from the top to the bottom. Every time you choose a link, you get a whole bunch of the same information on a new page. You have all of the navigation that's part of the theme and the template, and you have to move through all of that each time. We do have skip navigation links, which allow users to get past that information, but it can be somewhat laborious. So when you're putting URLs or links on your page, we really want you to follow a higher standard for those links. As an institution, we follow what are known as the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0 AA standards, and there's A, AA, and AAA. But descriptive link text is a AAA standard, and that's where we really want people to use good descriptive text to mask their hyperlinks. So if you think about a link, it has a lot of punctuation and symbols and letters and things, and often nonsensical words in there. So it's very distracting, and it's not helpful to leave those links exposed on a web page, because when they're read by someone with the screen reader, it's just usually a lot of information that doesn't really tell them what's going to happen, where they're going to go if they follow that link. So we ask that you instead highlight the text that you would like to represent the link, and then choose the link icon to paste the link into the web page. So basically what you're doing is you're writing something on your web page, you're selecting that text, and then you're placing the link under that text. You're masking the URL. Now, when those links are extracted in a simple list, they're very, very meaningful. So you might put something like, click here to register for the speaker event, or something like that. You also want to avoid, some people do mask links, but you want to try and avoid as much as you can the generic masking of links, such as read more, click here, because those, if there's more than one, they get very confusing to an individual. They'll just be a whole bunch of links that don't tell them where they're going to go, what they're going to expect when they get there. Also true, if you're linking to a download or something, or you're linking to more than a web page, or it's going to a different site, such as, say, for example, the link's going to take you into Canvas course. That's all good, great information that you can include in your masked URL in the description of the link. For example, download a PDF of our monthly newsletter, so that the user can know what's gonna happen when they click that link. Images on your page can really be categorized in 3 sort of large categories. We would have decorative images, which are just images that you're putting up there purely for decoration, and they don't really provide additional information to the context on your page. Those need to get what's called a null alt attribute, and they don't require alt text, so no text description of those images. We do want you to put in alt text for other images, and one of the great things about Drupal is it will ask for alt text, and it won't actually allow you to upload an image unless you provide alt text. So really, the important thing about the alt text is that it's just as concise and brief as possible, and that it describes what is being conveyed in that image. You don't have to say things like picture of or anything like that. You just have to tell the non-sighted user what is being represented in this image, so that they can get that context as well. If you're uploading very complex images to a web page, for example, if you think about a picture of a flyer that has lots of information on there, dates, times, speakers, background, that's not something that you could put into alt text. you'd want to provide some sort of caption for that so that that information is available to the non-sighted user. Color isn't just about contrast. Just be careful not to use color to convey meaning alone. For example, if you think about putting some information on the web and you're using just a color to designate a different function or meaning, you'd want to use something other than a color. For example, you might want to use a different word or a symbol or something as well, just to help you visualize it. If you think about using an X, a red X for fail or a green X for pass, that's an example of using color alone to convey meaning, because the only differentiation between those two states is the color. So in this example, you could put a red F and a green P. So that also gives you a different a different symbol other than just color to convey meaning. For your multimedia, it's very important that you include captions for your videos, and you include a plain text transcript for your audio. The web is our most public vector of information. Obviously, anybody, the general public, can come to our CalStateLA website. They can move through it and try to consume the information. So there's a huge audience for all of this content that you put on the web. So really, we want to make sure that all of your video and audio has captions and transcripts. Just a little note on that, auto-generated captions really aren't sufficient quality. Although they do a relatively good job, they don't include things like punctuation, speakers, and that sort of business. So if you're using things like YouTube Creator Studio, it's a good place to start to get the timings and everything for your captions, but you would want somebody to go through and check those. And finally, just a little word on some of your writing style for the web. You want to start with the most important information first, and then provide some additional information. So there's the inverted pyramid metaphor that's used by journalists. So you have the main point of your page straight away, so people don't have to read lots of copy to get there. And then it can have some additional information, and then maybe some general info. And use plain language and use it in the active voice. Keep your sentences and paragraphs short, and you're really trying to make your content very readable and comprehensible, so that anybody can comprehend it at any sort of grade level. That's really what we're shooting for with our writing on the web. Now, we do have a campus site license to Grammarly, which is a great tool that you can use, and it does work in the Drupal editor window. There's a little plugin for your web browser, so as you're writing your content, it can be checking your readability and sort of your language and things as you go along, and it also checks for spelling, which is quite helpful as well. So we have a campus site license for that, so please use that tool to help you with your information on the web. I'm going to hand it over to Jimmy now, our web accessibility specialist. Jimmy's going to cover the accessibility features for Drupal and some of the things that we do to monitor accessibility on the web.
Thank you, Leon. Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Tai, and I'll be introducing, as Leon said, some of the Drupal accessibility features and also other accessibility topics that we also cover. So with that, Drupal has some integrated features that encourage users to make accessible content. All these features are built in. One of these is what Leon mentioned earlier, which is requiring alt text for images before publishing. An additional feature is that there's a skip to content button built into the website, so users can skip the navigation and go straight to the content, so they're not overwhelmed with the amount of links at the beginning. Another is whenever a web form is created, labels are integrated during the creation of these web forms. Along with that, headings are also pre-built into the design blocks, which you will learn more about later on in this workshop. Along with that, there are many more features that will be available to you as well. One feature we want to note is ARIA labels, or accessible rich internet applications. So what this essentially is that certain Drupal design blocks will ask you if you would like to include an ARIA label. And what an ARIA label essentially is it clarifies the purpose of an element on your page. That's its more general use. For our use with the design blocks, it's mostly going to be found whenever there's a CTA or a call to action link, and there needs to be more clarification within that link. Whether it's because it is a symbol for a link, or if it's because that link just doesn't have enough space within the design block itself, our labels will enable you to describe them with a bit more detail, so then users will be able to understand where that link is heading to. Next thing we want to talk about is the SiteImprove Accessibility Monitoring tool that we just procured. SiteImprove is an automated testing tool that is used to check the accessibility of your website. With that, it'll give you a detailed score and a breakdown of different priorities and issues. So within SiteImprove, weekly, the SiteImprove will crawl through the university's websites. These crawls can also be run on demand to check for accessibility issues. And every time a crawl is completed, an accessibility report will break down those accessibility issues by priority. And so with this, it enables someone to begin remediation on these critical issues and be a bit more proactive with what's going on their website. SiteImprove is currently integrated into our university's RAMP process. Some of you may be asking, well, what's RAMP? RAMP stands for Remediation and Accessibility Monitoring Process. Essentially what it is it's a process that entails regular meetings with department representatives, with the web accessibility developer, which is myself, and together we set accessibility goals for remediation in conjunction with SiteImprove to continue to support remediation and fix any accessibility issues that may come up or may provide obstacles for anyone using the website. For more information about the RAMP process, you may head to CalStateLA, the CalStateLA Web Accessibility Testing website. Leon also just linked it in the chat. Besides SiteImprove, there's also various accessibility tools you can use to check your content. A great tool that we often use is the Wave toolbar, or the Web Accessibility Evaluation tool. It's a Chrome and Firefox extension that you can download for free, and you use it to scan single pages. So once you install the tool and scan whatever page you would like to check accessibility on, it'll give you a quick breakdown of what the issues may be plaguing your website and how you can fix them, with definitions and clearly visible indications of where these accessibility issues may occur. Another great tool is the Color Contrast Analyzer. What that would do is it would be able to check the foreground by you selecting it and the background of a web page and see if it meets color contrast requirements. This requirement is a 4.5:1 ratio, meaning there is a distinct amount of contrast between a foreground text and a background color. Another great tool is a browser plugin called No Coffee. With this plugin, it enables you to adjust the visibility of a web page, showing what it would be like if a user with low vision or no vision and how they would see your website. Lastly, another great tool is the headings map, which will break down your web page into structured headings and see if your heading structure is in the correct order. So there's always going to be ongoing accessibility support from the accessibility team. A portion of it is provided through the RAMP process directly with myself. But you can also always reach out to the accessibility team through accessibility@calstela.edu. And along with that, you can head to calstela.edu/accessibility, and there you'll find resources on web accessibility and accessibility for other websites and materials.